if you all have any questions during this, I actually won't be paying attention to the comments section, but Jasmine will be monitoring that and answering any questions that you have about anything that I say that is confusing, because I'm sure I'll do that a lot. Or if I mix up words. Oh my gosh, so many highs and hellos.
So I'll be here for you.
You guys are amazing. All right, this is gonna be fun. Looking forward to this. Okay, so Jasmine's here.
Okay,
Jasmine, say hi.
Now.
Wave, hello.
See you guys.
So Jasmine's here to get you guys going, but we want to give everyone a second, like I said, to kind of get familiarized with everything, and then I'll roll out the slide deck and we'll get rolling from there. But if you guys have any like audio issues, if I start to fade out, again, this is live, so we are rolling with the elements here, and we'll see how this goes. All right, well, I think everything's in working order here, so I think we should get started. Let me go ahead and I will share with you my screen here so we can get on over to All right, so welcome everyone to the TDU Lighting Masterclass. Like I said, my name is Mike Tanzillo, and I'm gonna be working with you all today. So what's the plan for today? What are we going to be going over? So overall, we're gonna start off by talking about the whys of lighting. We're gonna talk about things like what is visual shaping, what is our main motivation for lighting a shot? Because oftentimes when you take a lighting course, people will cover the hows of lighting, but we like to talk about the whys, and I'll get more into that in a minute. I'm gonna be taking you on a walkthrough of lighting this character, Mr. Bean. This is one of the characters that we light for our character lighting course. So I want to give you a little taste of how we go through the process of lighting a character from start to finish. Finally, we're going to talk about our TDU courses. I'm going to give you an insight into the courses that we offer, our critiques, just some of the things that we offer here at TDU. And super finally, we've got a super special offer for each and every one of you. This is kind of an unprecedented thing that we're going to be doing at TDU. This is the first time that we're ever offering something like this. So, but I won't tease it too much. We'll get to it at the end. Okay. But the biggest thing I want you all to do is to focus. And this is for you, because I want you to put down your cell phones. I want you to close your other tabs, because this webinar is focused on getting you the knowledge and ideas that are going to be needed to take you to the next level in your career. So you owe it to yourself to really focus in, ask questions while we're here, and really give us this masterclass your full focus. So before we get started, to make sure to get the focus going, I'm actually going to close my little camera window here. But just so you all know, I am here. I just want you to have through. All right. So first things first, the whys of lighting. Like I said, this actually came out from a conversation I had with a friend of mine years ago. And we talked about what we learned in school versus what we learned in the industry, because there's a big gap there, right? There was a gap between what we learned how to do and then what we really needed to get a job. And what we figured out is what we learned in school was the hows of lighting. How to create a key light, how to change its intensity, how to adjust shadow samples. What we didn't learn was the whys. We didn't learn about creating the mood. Well, let me get into that. So the 3 whys of lighting that we figured out were that we needed to emphasize mood, we needed to direct the viewer's eye, and we needed to sculpt visual shaping. So let me go through what each one of these mean. Emphasizing mood. This is the main thing that you're going to do as a lighting artist. This is the #1 most important thing, because at the end of the day, any artist on an animated film is a storyteller. And we're here to tell the story of the director's goal or the director's vision or the creator's vision. And what that means is, so we can sculpt a scene, we can animate a character, we can create the dialogue to set a certain emotion, but we as lighting artists need to visually set the emotion for the audience. So take an example like this. This is Tangled. This is a very warm, a very romantic scene. So what you're going to see are a lot of orange hues, a lot of pinks, and overall just a lot of soft, diffuse light. not a lot of contrast. There's no deep dark shadows, not a lot going on in terms of the dark values, but a lot of softness and a lot of glow. Versus the Corpse Bride, where now we're getting away from the warm tones and into some cools, getting some darker colors. Now we're getting underlighting. We're seeing a lot of shadows around the eyes, a lot of contrast around the eyes, and a lot of areas going into complete darkness. Very, very different mood. And this isn't something new for animated films. Changing the contrast level and the light has been going on in films since the beginning. This is one of the very first horror movies. This is Nosferatu from 1922. They use contrast and darkness and mood lighting in a way to really bring out this character's creepy qualities. You can even look at an image like this. So when I first pulled this up, like these are very different images for sure. But in reality, if you break them down to just looking at their core elements, they're very, very similar. Both images have an individual female standing center of the frame, shot from about waist up, not full body, not close up. But if you look at the two differences, they are stunning. Yes, their expressions are different, but look at the lighting. On the left side, warm tones, lots of yellows, lots of filled in shadows, not a lot of dark shadows, especially around the eyes and in the face, much more frontal lighting. Look at the shadow, even on her neck, it's very lifted. There's a lot of bounce light, about a secondary light happening in there. Not a lot of shaping, but a lot of happy type of a mood versus Elizabeth Taylor on the right. You can't even see her screen left eye. It's almost completely occluded by the shadow. Total darkness, totally different mood, totally different environment, much more dramatic than what we're seeing. And that's purely in the lighting. We can even do this within the same character. Take Mr. Incredible from The Incredibles. This is early in the film. He is not a superhero at this moment. He is an insurance adjuster or something, and he is having to deny this old woman's claim, and he is distraught about it. He's bummed about it. And look at his skin tone. He's lost all warmth and fleshiness in his skin tone. He almost looks sick. He looks not well, to be honest with you. And that's like part of the emotion of the scene. You're supposed to feel bad for him. You're supposed to understand that he's feeling down and bummed out. Take that versus the end of the movie, when he's got a much more warmth in his skin, much more life, much more blood pumping through him, where he's ready to be a superhero again. So even within the same character, you can use color and light to really, really enhance the mood of that character. Take this scene from Epic. So this is two characters. They're very, very small, walking around the woods. This is the scene where they kind of gain a romantic connection to each other, and they see this giant deer. And this scene is filled with warm light and, again, lots of soft. It's very similar to the Tangled scene. A lot of depth of field, just like a lot of softness. But if we take away the color from this, it completely changes the mood. We've got a lot. This is almost like a documentary now. There's not a lot of love in this shot. There's not a lot of romanticism. It's very, very cold. And if we push that even further and we shift it into the cool green realm, now it looks like something's going really wrong. Like these guys are in trouble. Like this deer is part of some alien planet in some laboratory somewhere. And like they might get eaten right now. Like I'm really worried for them versus what we saw in this. Like totally different. And all I did was just shift the color, shift the hues and shift the colors on these images. One of my favorite things about using color to influence emotion in a scene is when we're talking about food. So if you're ever photographing food, you want to hit it with lots of warm light. And that's because naturally we're tuned off to cool colors in food. It's actually been discovered that if we eat off of a blue plate, we're more likely to eat less food. So if you're dieting, you can actually, if you eat off of a blue plate, it's scientifically proven that you'll eat less because blue is an unsatisfying color. So you guys just came here for lighting stuff, and we're doing diet stuff too. You didn't even see that one coming. So we've got very warm tones, very cool tones. So what does that mean? Like, how could you use that as a lighting artist? Say you've got a kid who's been out in the rain all day, and he comes home, and he gets home, and his family has a feast laid out for him. And he's so excited about it. And you want to show the audience that he's excited about this feast. So you hit that feast with bright, warm, like light. And now the feast looks very appetizing. But the mom says, before you can eat anything, you've got to eat these vegetables that you hate. boom, the camera shifts over. We hit it with cool light. We hit the broccoli or the Brussels sprouts or whatever with cool light. Makes it seem really unappetizing. We can balance that. We can use this knowledge of color and food to really emphasize the mood. Similarly, in this animated short, we see Edmund looking off in the distance. It's very gray and glum until this warm light pops in. All of a sudden, there's a sense of hope. There's a sense of longing for something better. This is one of my favorite stories from Emperor's New Groove. So in this movie, there's this pink potion. And in this potion, this is what turns the Emperor into a llama, right? Now, leading up to this shot, you start to get a lot of cools, a lot of blues. The artists start taking warmth out of the frames as we lead up to it for about a minute or two leading into this shot. All of a sudden, the evil woman turns around and pulls out this pink potion. All of a sudden, boom, the pink potion jumps off the screen because we've only been looking at cool tones this whole time. And now we've got this color signifying this element in the scene. And so now the pinks throughout the movie are only used when there's the presence of the of this potion. So there's it's something to pay attention to the next time you watch Emperor's New Groove. Same thing with characters. We can use the color of characters to be like, in Epic here, we used the color of very warm lights on the hero characters to emphasize life and being part of the forest and all that good stuff, versus the cool characters, the guys on the left, were a part of the evil, their death, they're part of destruction, and so they're always hit with cool light. So when we're lighting them, we want to emphasize the warm tones of the hero and the cool tones of the villains. So now we want to move on to directing the viewer's eye. So what does directing the viewer's eye mean? Basically, when you're lighting a scene, oftentimes the shots are very short. In a film, especially an action sequence, they may be a second, 2 seconds, even less than a second. I think the record is that Jasmine lit a shot once that was like 7 frames long, or like a quarter of a second. So in that very short period of time, it is your job as a lighting artist to make sure that the audience's eye is directed to the most important thing in the scene. Take this scene from Tangled, for example. So here she is. She's standing on this ledge. She's looking at this painting on the wall. She's kind of pointing at it. But how do we get her to read? How do we know that the most important thing to show the audience is this specific painting that she's holding back? The artists have put in this slash of light through the scene and allowed that to really help the audience focus on the background, to really focus on this area of light. Same thing here in Monsters, Inc. We've got this area of light. This one's actually leading a path. So Mike Wazowski's walking through the factory, and this light is now leading a path for him to follow as you go back. And as the viewer's eye, you can follow that light path back. So how do you direct the viewer's eye? It can be done in several different ways. The most common are these guys. There's light over dark or dark over light. You're setting, and this is contrast. So your eye is naturally drawn to the most contrasty part of the image. You can use complementary colors. You can layer yellows over blues. You can layer color complements to get things to pop out. Same things with warm tones over cool tones, which is similar to complementary colors. But the idea is you want to create distinction and contrast between the foreground elements and the background elements that can really help them visually separate from the screen. Here's 3 examples from some animated shorts. We've got dark over light on the screen left side. We've got the dark characters popping off over the sunset. In the middle, we've got light over dark. We've got a very, very dark background and very light objects popping forward. That's a really good example of, lots of times you'll have the center of interest actually be very small on the screen. So these are very important to get off those. On the right-hand side, it's one of my favorite color contrasts because we've got his blue pants popping off over the warm background and his orange jacket popping off over the cool sky. A little trick that you can do if you're wondering if you're successfully directing the viewer's eye is you can either squint at your image with your eyes or you can blur the image. This is something that I used to do when studying photography, and it was a very common technique when you're analyzing your images. You just kind of squint to your image and you get a good understanding of what's going on. One of my favorite examples of directing the viewer's eye comes from 12 Angry Men. This is, if you ever watch this movie, this is a film that's set entirely in one place in this juror's room. And it's just a bunch of monologues going around the table. All these guys talking and delivering these great speeches. But the lighting is just superb because not only are they directing the light on the viewer's face, but in many cases, they're actually directing the light to the viewer's eyes. You can see the shadow on their foreheads and down below their chin. Like it's just really directing the attention on their eyes. For this guy, he's got a hat on, so naturally it creates the shadow. But this guy, like, look at it. There's a barn door. There's something artificial that they're using to shadow to really, really create focus on his face. And again, light values over the dark backgrounds. Just an absolutely, I mean, this is a great movie, but a great example in some really, really wonderful lighting as well. And you can see it here in the Fantastic Flying Books of Mr. Morris Lesmer. You can see that we've got this very bright, bright background. You've got the character standing in front of it. You want that character's darker values to really pop forward, to really read off of that background. In Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, you'll see lots of reds popping off over cool backgrounds, lots of warmth over cool in order to get that to work out. And same thing here in My Neighbor Totoro. You can see, again, a little bit of darkness over light. In Peanuts, we have this example of warmth over kind of a cool green background in these walls. I know that when we were testing this movie, we did a lot of research, or we did a lot of testing on the colors of the kids' paint rooms, the paint in the kids' rooms as we were going through it to make sure that their warm tone skins could pop off from the background. This is one of my favorite ones of all time too. By the way, I'm going to mention a lot of favorites as I go through this. This is from The Secret Life of Kells. This is a little bit different. This is using complexity. So there's complex shapes in these leaves surrounding the eyes of the character, very sharp edges, very like lots of little details. But the eyes of the character are just simple shapes. The nose, a very simple shape. The mouth, just an arc. Those simple shapes are able to read off of this very complex surrounding and really focus our eye there in the middle. I'm going to say favorite again. One of my favorite all-time movies. This is Bambi. Obviously, there's Bambi's warm tones popping off from the green background. But look at the background. Whenever you're watching this movie, you're like, oh, they're in the forest. They're in the forest. Your brain's just, they're in the forest. But look at the background. It's so abstract. It's just very simple shapes. It's very like simple abstractions back there. So those simple shapes are able to fall back into the background. That painting is able to recede into the background while the characters with more detail can pop forward. Here's a photograph from Jasmine. This is, again, just a great example of leading lines. You can use light and the geometry in the scene to really focus the viewer's eye back towards the back of the frame or towards the area of focus that you want to focus in on. Depth of field is another great example that we'll talk about. So we've got depth of field demonstrating the character. This is the same shot. This is focusing on the character, and you got the reflection of this parsley in his eye. You can see this depth of field shift can be used to really direct the viewer's eye. Sculpting visual shaping. So this one I always like to talk about. So this is true of any 2D medium, be it painting, photography, whatever, or film in our case. Sculpting visual shaping means that we are basically working in we're basically doing an illusion, right? We're projecting something on a 2D surface and we're trying to project 3D space. We're trying to communicate 3D space to our audience in a 2D medium. So look at these two images. They're actually the exact same model. They're both a sphere on a plane. The one on the left, no shaping, no shadows, no light to dark, no understanding of the volume of the object, no understanding of the shadow connection between the point, no idea of what's on what, where they exist visually in space. The image on the right, lots of light and dark shifting values. You understand that it's a sphere now sitting on a plane. It's not just a circle. It's got some dimension. It's got some depth to it. And again, something totally true of drawing. If you've ever taken a sketch class, it's a very similar thing. You want to communicate this volume and this shape to our audience. And that's done through, again, creating a gradation from very brights to very darks. So you want to start off with your center light on the screen right side here. And then we want to fade into our halftones. And then this core shadow is actually the darkest part of when we're lighting something. Because what happens is down here, we're starting to get light reflecting off the ground and filling in this area. So this is the darkest. This gets some bright areas. Then we get an occluded shadow as they contact together. And then we've got the cast shadow on the ground. Additionally, we've got the specular highlight. This is actually the reflection of the light source. So you can see here in computer graphics and in the real world, when light hits a surface, it hits that surface and then bounces not only light onto the object, it bounces the surrounding color onto the object. So depending on if you have a blue, a yellow, a red, a magenta, whatever, those lights will bounce up underneath these objects. So you want to make sure to account for that when you're lighting and to create that visual shaping. Because again, this happens in reality. This is just a salt shaker that Jasmine took around and photographed and demonstrated how this same object on different surfaces will reflect and bounce different light. And here's just another example of that. Just another example of going from light to dark with some highlights, core shadows, and the reflected light underneath. So when you're sculpting visual light, it's not only about round objects. If you look around the room that you're in right now, look at any flat surface. I guarantee you there's going to be value differences between light and dark. You may think that the ceiling above you is white, but if you look at it, there's actually variation in tones. Like I'm looking up at my ceiling now, I've got a tungsten light, so there's orange tones, versus as you get closer to the window, it's much bluer. And if you look around your space, you've got to account for that flat surface having visual shaping, light to dark fall off areas. And again, when we take this simple cube and we shape it three ways, you get a good sense of the volume as you go from one to the next. The master at sculpting visual shaping was Rembrandt, or as I learned when I put this presentation together, his name is Rembrandt Hammerzoon van Rijn. So we'll just stick with Rembrandt though. So Rembrandt had these great light to dark fall off values on characters. And he used it so often that this term got coined, and it's Rembrandt lighting. And Rembrandt lighting is, of course, lots of shaping on the character. We've got light to dark fall off. We've got shaping across the nose, the chin, the forehead, the eyes, the hair, everything. But the one thing that makes Rembrandt lighting a little bit different, that makes it a little bit distinguishable from other types of visual shaping, is this triangle opposite the nose. So light scrapes across the face here, comes in from the key side on the left here, scrapes across the nose, and then the arc of the nose will actually create a triangular shaped shadow on this side. You'll see it across so much of his work. You've got these light to dark fall off areas, whether it's environments, whether it's characters, an understanding of shaping, an understanding of communicating this volume. And it's remarkable, not only that it appears in his work, but that stuff gets translated even all the way through film into CG. So if you look at the characters here, you can see these light to dark fall off areas. Even on the kid here, we've got the triangle happening here. Now, like, because of the shape of some CG characters' faces, you're not always going to see that, but lots of times that's the goal, is to get that little triangle from a human character. In Coco, they did a really nice job of not only balancing warmth and cool. I'm sorry, not only balancing light and dark, but also warmth and cool. So you've got this warm light bouncing up from underneath and the cool light coming in from the top. So even though there's a value difference, even though this cool light's brighter, they're using the color shift to create visual shaping that way. And I always just throw this image too, because this is a promo image from Coco. Just absolutely love the shaping on Mama Coco. I mean, like, look at her skin tones and just so much variation from left to right and top down. Just so much good shaping, so much solid visual shaping. Even in abstract work, like we're getting into a very cool time in the animated film industry, and that we're getting into more abstract stuff. So Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse just won the Academy Award. So you can see that even though this is thought of as like a 2D project, look at the visual shaping across the character's face. There's light to dark fall off. There's a specular highlight. There's some bounce coming up underneath his chin from his shirt. Look at the background. Again, just reds and blues, but we're varying it. There's a varying difference there, so we can have an understanding of that space and a communication of the world that he's living in. So those are the three whys of lighting. There's emphasizing the mood, directing the viewer's eye, and sculpting visual shaping. And these are three things that we'll talk about in every single course. And again, these things don't happen in isolation. They happen all together at once. Like this scene from Incredibles 2, we've got these two characters going back and forth. We've got them popping off by being light over dark. We're also emphasizing the mood. So this guy's more grizzled versus this kid that's much more innocent. So he's getting a lot of filled in light. He's not a lot of shadow around his eyes. You've got the visual shaping kind of scraping across his, and we're starting to see some of that triangle here versus him, much darker, much more overhead light. And we're not getting that same type of innocence. It's much darker. He's obviously seen some things and been through a lot. In Epic, we've got, I lit this shot where there's three things that happen in one shot here. So the character lands, an arrow strikes in front of him, and then he jumps away and we focus on the arrow. So in this first one, the one thing I wanted to do was create this pocket of light here that anticipated the audience looking in this area. And the one thing from this was that that I also wanted to point out was how hard it was in this film to get a camouflage character to pounce off from a green background. This comes up a lot. It'll be like Snoopy in the snow on Peanuts, or a blue character against the sky. It's like, how do you get these guys to read? So in this shot, we did some atmospheric fall off, a little bit of haze back there to decrease the saturation and get him to pop forward a little bit. So we decreased the contrast back there and got him to pop forward. But again, next thing up, we needed to see this arrow hitting here. So we've got that pocket of light hitting there. And again, finishing on that and creating good shaping on this, creating good shaping on that, so we can get a real feeling of the poison that's happened once this arrow struck. Same thing here from Rio 2. This was something that I did to get these warm tone monkeys to pop off from this cooler background. And then one of the big stress points on this was creating visual shaping in all these leaves. So even though these leaves were in shadow, we wanted to create some sort of shaping on there. So there's specular highlights on there to create some visual shaping, to understand that they've got volume, they've got depth, they've got weight to them. And then in this shot, this was one of the most difficult things from Rio. We've got two characters that are very similar in tones. We've got Blue and Jewel. Now, Blue is a very, very specific blue tone, and Jewel also a very specific cyany blue. So when we were lighting these, they're in this very warm environment, but I allowed that warmth to only kind of show through in the rims on their beaks here, and allowed their hero color, their natural blue colors, to really stand out. So again, it's creating shaping, it's making sure that their colors stay true to the characters that they are, it's getting them to work in the environment, it's balancing all of this stuff all at once. Cicada Princess, just beautiful warmth and cool, beautiful getting this character to pop over all these other ones, but creating individuals in this mask with these little specular highlights over each one so we can read the whole scene. Okay, so that's enough theoretical. Now I'm going to hop back over, and what I'm going to do now is I want to take you all through a lighting walkthrough. Let me go pop on. So we've got, we're going to do this. This is an example from the character lighting course of a lighting walkthrough that we do. And this was, we've got a lot of students who lit this character. We've made this available through the RenderMan website. So let me go ahead and bring this up here. And you'll see what it does here. So darkness, and you'll see, start this back at the beginning. So again, a little character lighting walkthrough. I'm going to disappear again for a little bit. And then for the last little bit, I will come back on and talk to you about some TDU courses. So this is our final product of lighting the Mr. Bean character. Again, I'm going to take you through the process of how to download it and all the assets that we needed for this. And then I'll talk you through how each of the lights were created and how just basically what my visual goal for this overall project was. So first off, you can get the Mr. Bean character at the Pixar website. The link is down below here. You can download the model, and you can also go down to the artist's website. It's Bruno Ponti here. You can click his website. You can learn about him. He donated this to the RenderMan community, which is very cool. So you can learn about that. And again, the thing that I really like about this model is it comes in very cleanly. All the shaders are already all set up for RenderMan. And all you got to do is just click the download link there at the top. The second thing that we'll need for this, that I use for this demo, is an HDRI map from one of my favorite websites, HDRI Haven. It's completely free to use, completely good to go. You have hundreds of different HDRI maps from a bunch of different settings. I chose to use this graffiti shelter just because it was very, very cool. Like, I just think it's got some dynamic qualities to it. It's got some bright spots to it. And as you can see, you can download many different qualities, and it's already been downloaded over 12,000 times, so it's good to go. So once you have the model downloaded, you're going to enter it into Maya here, and this is what you're going to see out of the box. You're going to see the character. You're going to see this ground plane. You're going to see a whole bunch of lights already in it. There's going to be all these display layers, so you can turn things on and off, and you can turn off like the hair geo or the eyes or the faces or the background. And it's all well and good. It actually, like I said, it all kind of works pretty well out of the box. I would not recommend turning off the hair on Mr. Bean. It makes him look even stranger than he already did by default. But for our purposes, we are going to want to delete all the lights that already exist in there because we want to do our own lighting. And we want to just kind of start with just the model. So go ahead and select the lights there and just wipe them out. And now we can start going from here. And this is exactly what we want. So when we open the IT renderer in RenderMan, it's just going to be a complete black screen. So what we want to do is the very first thing that I want to do is I want to create a key light for this setup. So I'm sorry, we're going to create the dome light for the setup. So what we're going to do is we're going to create the PXR dome light that's going to create a sphere all around the character. And by default, it's just going to be white. But what we want to do is we want to map that HDR image onto it as well. Now, by default, the HDR image that you downloaded was .hdr, but the very first time that you add it to RenderMan, it'll go ahead and create a .tex file, which will then be used in future ones. It'll automatically do that in the background because RenderMan uses TEX files or TX files instead of TIFFs or HDRIs or anything else. Okay, so now you can see this is applied to the background, and it's already driving a lot of the lighting. Like you can see that the HDRI map has values. The whole point of the HDRI map is its values above 0 to 1. And so you can use those values as secondary light rays that are bouncing back into the scene because RenderMan is a path tracing renderer, so there's just light bouncing around. So it's actually reading those bright values from the HDR image and projecting light back into the scene. Now, some people use it as their main light source. I kind of want to use it as just like a fill or like a skylight. So I'm going to tone down the exposure on it and also turn off the primary visibility because I don't want it displaying in my actual renderer. I just want it affecting the lighting source there. So again, you can see that we've got it mapped in there. We've got it all set up. And now what we're going to do is we're going to want to start creating lights like our key light. So we can see we've got that big door to the right. So what I'm going to do is create a rectangular light to mimic the light coming in that door. So by default, it starts off at the origin. By the scale of this image, it's very large. I'm sorry, it's very small, so you're gonna have to make it bigger. And you can see right away that the RenderMan light is going to go ahead and work because when you start making it larger, it's gonna function like an actual light does, which is the larger the size of the light, the brighter it'll be, and also the softer the shadows. What I've done here is I went ahead and started looking through the light, and this will help me kind of place it because again, we want the light coming in from that screen right side where the door was in the original plate, and we're going to want the light scraping across his face that way. So you can see where, like I use that to kind of roughly put it in a position. Now we're going to want to make it a little bit more door-like, a little narrower and a little wider. Just so it kind of picks that stuff up. Now we can start adjusting the exposure on a little bit. We can make it a little bit brighter. The one nice thing about RenderMan versus Arnold is that RenderMan will automatically by default have some exposure to it. And you can see down here in the refinement category, you can adjust the specular amount or diffuse amount. So I went ahead and took down the specular amount of that light because it was just creating some weird specular highlights in his eyebrows and up in his hair and some other areas. So once we get this window in place, we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of warm color to it because again, if you look around this scene, it's just like really we're just adding a lot of warm light to the scene because there's warm light coming in. He's surrounded by all this wood. Normally in an outdoor scene, you'd want to add a little bit of blue for the skylight, but in this particular case, we're not really seeing that. We're just feeling all the warmth. So the next thing up is I wanted to add a little bit of a light blocker to this one, or in RenderMan, it's called a rod filter. Rod is ROD. It's short for range of darkness, and you'll see what it does here. So by clicking on the light filter in the light, you can create the rod filter, and it creates this shape, this spherical shape. And wherever you position that shape will actually appear in shadow. So you can see it's kind of, what I'm going to use it for is to flank off the top of his head so that you can just really focus in on the eyes and the center of his face. So I'm going to go ahead and just adjust that position and that scale, and you can adjust the edge softness just to kind of cut him off right here at his head so that it really can, again, zero in on his face. So you can see that there. And this is a really quick way of creating a shadow
That's doesn't require the light to be positioned in a certain way, doesn't require like hand painting a gobo map. It's a really, really convenient way. And like I said, you can kind of just see how I flagged off the ear and the top of the head a little bit just to focus that, that light in a little bit closer in on his eye. So next up, we're going to start to deal with this fill area. So the screen left side of his face, because we're getting the screen right side coming in, but we just want to create some fill light bouncing in there. And we're going to do it two different ways. The first way is we're going to add a plane or some geometry and actually physically bounce light back up into that space. Because again, path tracing software of RenderMan is actually going to bounce light around in a pretty realistic way. So we're going to add a brighter, I used the background shader that was already in the scene. And what we can do is you can see as we're angling this, if you look in the preview window in the bottom left there, you can see the lighting on him changing slightly. And you can start to feel the light bouncing up off of him, similarly to how it would coming up off the ground or off the ground surface. Obviously, we don't want that plane existing in the scene, so I went ahead and shut off the primary visibility so that we can only feel the secondary effects. Similar to the background dome, we're not actually seeing it in the shot, but it's still going to influence it. It's still, we just don't want it to like cast shadow or receive shadow or have any sort of primary visibility. We just want it for its secondary light contribution. And once you get into place, you can kind of angle it the way that you want. You can scale it. You can even change the color of it. You can do all kinds of things to this bounce card to really refine the look of it and get it exactly where you want. The problem with the bounce card is it doesn't really do too much of specular contribution. Again, it's pretty much just a diffuse one. So if we want to add specular contributions to the bounce area, to the fill area, we're going to have to create a light. So what I've done is I've created another rectangular light, which is the common light source for RenderMan. And we're going ahead and rename it fill light so it doesn't get mixed up with our key light. And again, we just want to increase the exposure. And then we want to, position the light, make it bigger, scale it up, really just get the light in the position that we want it to. Because again, we want it to just fill in that screen left side of his face, give it that warm color. Because again, as much as I want to add cooler light to this, there really isn't much of a place to do it just because it's all warmth and it's like all warmth surrounding him. So again, I went ahead and turned down the diffuse amount. So we're just getting some specular contributions. I went ahead and left the diffuse in there a little bit just so you can get a tiny bit of variation, but really we want the variation to come in with the specularity in that area as well. So it's a combination of, again, affecting the diffuse amount, the exposure, and the specular amount in order to just get just that slight little bit of shaping in his face there. Next up, I want to create some separation in the comp between this character and the background to kind of get him to pop forward a little bit. And but we don't want it to be like too obvious. We want it to be very natural. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some rim lights. And because the light source, as you can see here, just in the GUI is, again, we've got that door off to the screen right side, but we also have some light kind of coming in from behind him. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to create a couple more rectangular lights that are going to act as our two rim lights. We're going to do one off the screen left side, and we're going to do one off the screen right side. And again, the purpose of this light is to help separate him from the background. And also it ties in a little bit in the background plays. You'll see once we enter the compositing phase, but it's a pretty straightforward one there. So again, same setup, position it. When I'm positioning rim lights, I don't know why I do this, but I will just jack up the intensity so that I can really, really see it, because all I'm looking for is just the position of it. I know that as I go through all these lights, I'm going to have to dial it in a little bit more. And in this particular case too, with the rim light, I kind of wanted it to focus up on his head, maybe a little bit on his shoulder, but I didn't want it to go too crazy. So I used the emission focus control of the area light to actually make it more like a spotlight. So it brings in the edges and really focuses it in on that screen left side. So again, we want to give it a little warm color. We want to adjust the exposure. We want to just like really get it in, because the one thing we don't want to do with that light is confuse it with the key light or any of the fill lights. We want it to be like a subtle variation in there. It doesn't, the thing with rim lights is that it's not always based on a source. So we want it to be we want it to feel like a secondary light source. We want it to feel like it's not the primary thing. So now in this setup, I've gone ahead and duplicated the light, made it my screen right side rim light, and we're just going to go ahead and position that in the way that's just picking up the light again, because we really want to create an overall rim. If we want to increase the exposure on the right side versus the left side, just to give a little bit of variation between the rims, we could do that too. But that's pretty much how that's created. The last thing that we want to do in the render is, if you can see the very front part of his head, the front part of his hair is looking a little dull, a little flat. So I'm going to go ahead and add another plane into this to create a little bit more specular highlight, specular pickup on the top of his head there. I added a PXR constant shader to it, and I actually jacked up those values up to 5. You can also do it as a you can do like a a mesh light, where you can actually turn a piece of geometry into a light. But for reflections, I tend to just do it as a material value that's reflecting. If it was like a light source that was actually creating diffuse light, I would definitely do it as a mesh light. So now we're just going to reshape this plane and kind of bend it, twist it, scale it, shape it, just so it's picking up just on the front of the hair. And as you can see, again, we are going to turn off the primary visibility and also the ability to cast shadows and all that stuff, so it doesn't actually appear in the render. It's just picking up some highlights on the front of Mr. Bean's hair there. So this is our main setup of the original render. So now we've got the rim lights, we've got the hair reflection, we've got the character pretty much looking the way that we want. I want to talk for a quick second about our final render settings. So you open the render settings the same way that you'd open any other Maya render settings, just the render settings window. You want to create the current frame, because again, this is a still frame, not animated. You want to set your aspect ratio. You don't have to use 4096 by 4096, just what I use there. In the RenderMan settings, you can see all the basic RenderMan settings. We've also got the AOVs. So for the AOVs, I went ahead and set up a direct diffuse, direct specular, indirect diffuse, and indirect specular, and subsurface, and a Z pass in case I wanted to do some depth of field. Feel free to add whatever AOV pass you would like to give you the control that you would need. But one additional AOV pass that you may want to add into that is, again, you can do a normal pass if you want to add some normal values from there. But the other one that I wanted to add is the CryptoMats. And we have, again, in TDU Live, we talk about installing CryptoMats. But in RenderMan, you can go into the sample filter here, right-click the menu option there, and then select PXR CryptoMat. And you can select how the CryptoMat is being pulled. You can either be based on the path, on the name, on the attribute. What I did was I created this one that's based on the path, appended the name of it, because it actually goes off as an additional render pass as path. And just to add that suffix, because as you can see here, I'm going to create another CryptoMat, go into that render settings by clicking the box and the arrow and changing that name to the material. So we can select it now based on the material value. Just giving us a couple options. You can add a couple more. You can only use one CryptoMat if you'd like. I just find the CryptoMats to be very, very beneficial. Next up, I'm going to talk about the eyes a little bit. So we are going to create a special render pass just for the eyes. And in this particular example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that eye geo, and then we're going to go into the RenderMan preset browser there. And you're going to see we've got all these different metal materials, and you can actually grab a bunch of different ones. There's like metal materials, rubber materials, composite, glass. Really good place to start on a lot of the material values. So what I did was I just added a chrome ball to mine, and I imported it and assigned it to that geo, and used that as the basis of creating a reflection map based on the eyes. So I went ahead and adjusted it a little bit. We can see now we've got some chrome eyes. And what we are going to do here is we are going to go in and turn off all of the geo, so that, because in the render, we don't want the face, the hair, anything appearing as as primary visibility. We just want to isolate it to just its influence in the reflection. So, man, if you thought hairless Mr. Bean is creepy, faceless Mr. Bean is even creepier with just hair and chrome eyeballs. So go ahead and turning off all of the hair curves and everything else, just again in their primary visibility. But we are going to leave the face visible in the reflections. For the hair, I went ahead and turned that off entirely to save on render time. But the face you definitely want appearing in the reflections so that so they can get that, and we can use that to comp in. The last element to this that we want to add is a nice circular eye ding. You can either choose to do circular eye dings, you can use a rectangular or a shape. I went ahead and just use a circle for the setup, and you can choose to add it as you fit based on, because again, the eye ding is just a reflection of your light source. So in this case, we can either choose the light source to be like the sun and it's kind of circular, or it could be like the entire door and actually be very rectangular. It's totally up to you. So now we, again, very similarly to how we did the hair spec, we apply a PXR constant shader to it, give it a higher value. And then we're going to want to go ahead and position that in a place that's going to give us a visually pleasing eye ding. So we talk a lot about how the eye dings should fall on the cusp between the iris and the sclera, or the sclera and the pupil, however you want it to look. But you can position, transform, scale, rotate that object in the 3D scene so it kind of falls perfectly on the eye. And again, for anyone that's done the animated character, the nice thing is that their eyes aren't blinking or moving around, so you can really kind of position it in exactly the place that you want it to be. So now that we've got a basic setup going, we are going to switch over into the comp here. So this is my final nuke script. Not too crazy. I know nuke scripts always look intimidating when you first open them up, but I promise you they're not that big of a deal. We'll go and start with the background that I used. So again, I brought in the HDRI image as the background plate. I just repositioned it. I transformed it so that the door was on the screen right side, because again, that's where we want the light source coming in. And when we did that, it's just like off screen right. So it just created these little slats behind it and a lot of black area to the left. So I went ahead and pasted it together with another background with basically itself. So I moved it over, pasted it back together. So now we have a nice background plate and use that behind the character. If we go up to the very beginning of the character, you'll see his raw render. And the first thing that I did was I noticed like there was a little bit of a render artifact, and it was in his coat here. Do you see these like weird specular highlights? Not crazy about those. If I want, I could go back in and redo the material values and really kind of clean up, because you can see here, you can see the direct specular. This is where the problem is. I could change that in the render if I want to, but because I rendered this pretty large, it took a long time. And I've got these cool AOVs. So I've got the indirect diffuse and the direct diffuse, where the jacket is looking nice and clean and pretty and everything that we want without any of the problems. So what I did was I just shuffled out the direct diffuse, indirect diffuse, added them back together because it's a plus operation, used the crypto mat to hold it with inside the original jacket, and then I just kind of pasted it back over the top again. So you can see the before and after here of the jacket. And I added this grade node in between just to brighten it up a little bit for a little bit of a better appeal. Then going down here, you can see, I'm just going to take you kind of through step by step. This is just a minor color shift there, made it a little brighter. And now we're going to start getting into the eye work. So again, this is the crypto mat that renders out. It's just a blackness, but when we add the crypto mat node and nuke, you can start to see that we can isolate certain areas. So isolate the eye and then drew a roto around the eye. And I just made that eye a little bit darker. But you can use a combination of the reflection maps, the crypto mats, the AOVs to really, really get a good control of this in your comp. Now you can see I added some more of the eye reflections in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in here so you can start to see the base render, some eye reflections, a little bit of ding there. Again, I decided at the end of the day to use a little bit of the rectangular window. I thought that ended up looking better. And the next thing that we really want to do is add a little bit of light wrap, because you can see it's like a 1-to-1 pixel edge on the character there. So And it actually works better over the bright areas. So you can see just a little bit of light wrap, especially on this screen right side. Watch around his ear here before we turn it off and on. So we just really want to bleed those edges so the character really feels like it's part of the background. And again, when we're doing these headshots, I generally like to blur the background out so it's not too distracting, so the focus is really on the character. And then we talk about this a lot, so it's just adding a little bit of light glow to it, blurring out the original background, screening it back over top of itself. So it's just like adding a little bit of glow. I went ahead and adjusted the dark values here. Just did some color grading, some additional glow work. I added some vignetting around the outside. And then the final step was I just shuffled it out as a white alpha channel. So it was a nice clean alpha out the back end. So now you can see, again, when I first looked at the original Mr. Bean character, I thought they looked pretty cool online, and I still do. I just like what we've done more. I think it's warmer. I think it's, I'm proud that it's matching his hero color a little bit more. The original one, it was kind of like dirty around the face there, but yeah, and I'm really happy with the outcome. That being said, I know for sure that you all can do better than I can. So that's where the challenge comes in.
So welcome back. So those two sections, I think, give a good idea of an intro into some of the things that we do at TDU. The first one was about our lectures and how we like to talk about lighting, how we like to talk about the art of lighting, how we like to talk about the elements that make up a well-lit shot, and how those theoreticals can translate into scenes in film and in your own work. We also provide walkthroughs, like we just demonstrated there with that character lighting walkthrough. And we wanted to show the next step, how these courses can help you, because that's ultimately why you're here, right? That's why you came here today. You don't want to hear me yammer on for an hour and a half or whatever. You want to hear how TDU can help you. So that's what we're going to get into now. And for those, I know that some of you have to leave early and some of you are arriving late. Don't you worry about it. Within 24 hours, we're going to have a replay of this up. You're not going to miss out on the super special offer at the end. We're going to be all good. So now let's get back into the presentation, and I want to show you all how TDU can be used to help you and get you to where you want to go. Let's share the screen again. Okay. So how do TDU courses help you? So when Jasmine and I were designing the TDU lighting courses, we had one goal in mind. We wanted to take somebody, you in this example, from having a basic knowledge of 3D software, just an understanding of how to navigate around the space, how to save out a file, how to open a file, how to render something. And we want to take you to the point where you have the skills, the knowledge, the assets, everything that you need to create an amazing demo reel and get you the job that you want as a lighting artist. So how do we do that? How exactly do we get from A to B? So we take you from the basics knowledge of 3D software, we take you into our Power of Light course. Now, the Power of Light course is similar to what we discussed in the beginning of this, the whys of lighting. We'll talk about shaping and directing the viewer's eye. We'll talk about creating using reference to create beautiful images. And we will start you off with just some simple geometry and using that geometry to get those basic points. So here's some examples of student work. This was, again, just using simple geometry, spheres, toruses, planes, and just using those to help communicate a visual style and help getting an understanding of how we're able to take something to get us from what we want to create to actually making it. Because I'm sure each and every one of you has an artistic eye. And it's what got you into this game in the beginning, right? It's this understanding of the way something looks. It looks cool. It looks neat. It looks. I like color. I like the way that something looks dramatic. But now it's understanding how to take it from that point and getting it to an end game. So how do we create the looks that we want to make? And that's what we focus on in the Power of Light course. From the Power of Light, now that we've got this base foundation understanding of lighting, we move on and we start talking about materials and shaders, because lighting is nothing without shaders. They work together much like they do compositing, which we'll talk about here in a second. But light and shaders work together so well. And so in this course, Jasmine takes you through lighting our TDU character, Mia. She'll take you from start to finish. She'll talk about lighting or texturing and creating shaders for the skin, for the hair, For the garments, this is the demo of the scarf. And by the way, all these demos are time-lapse. We don't actually go through them this quickly. I just wanted to show you multiple things. So we want to take you through the entire process so you understand it from start to finish. Sorry. We want to take you not only through the garments, but like I said, the eye. So we want to create the eye lighting, the eye shaders, and everything in between. So we move from the shaders into character lighting. So again, not only are we focused on getting the shaders right in the eye, we want to show you how to light an eye, because the eye is how you make a connection with the character. It's how like an audience feels that connection. So we want to make sure that we're doing in the shader and we're doing in the lighting and that we're really, really nailing it. And again, this Mr. Bean walkthrough was an example of that character lighting. Now, we gave this to our students and they created some incredible, gorgeous things. Again, it was just the simple headshot of Mr. Bean, but using the knowledge from the power of light, using the knowledge from the character lighting course, they were able to use light, color, all these different things to create some really beautiful stuff. Additionally to Mr. Bean, you'll bring in your own characters, you'll bring in other characters that we use. This is a minion that was done by, and a couple shots here done by Ryan Hansford. And again, we're just communicating a visual language through character lighting to get us to a point where we can make some beautiful images to have for our demo reel. Because again, all of our classes are about getting work for your demo reel. We are also developing our TDU bunny. This is our mascot. This is our pet project we've been working on for a while. So we've taken some early designs. We've built this character, and this is going to be totally available for the character lighting course. We've designed the fur. We've hired a modeler. We've hired a texture artist. We've got one of the best riggers in the industry. We've got a fur artist from Real Effects creating the fur body. And now we're going to start animating the character. And this character is going to become available to you in the TDU character lighting course. After character lighting, that's all well and good, but you need to light environments as well. So in our environment lighting course, we focus on not only the alley asset that you see, because we know that gathering assets for lighting is very important to you all. So we want to make sure to give you the assets that you need, not only the knowledge and the skills, but also the assets to light. So we give you this alley. We show you how we light it. We show you some different examples. We talk about things that are specific for environment lighting, things that will help us take what seems like a small model and make it feel big, make it feel like a vast space. We'll also take it and make something feel very small. Something like this Lego scene, make it feel like it's a very small space. This was just done by one of our students, Jesse Melky, and he really took the TDU Alley and made it really beautiful, made it really glowy, made it really happy, and created the mood, the shaping, and the color that we look for. And we can take this asset and you can light it in a bunch of different ways. You can create more photorealistic interiors if you want. We'll help you along that path. If you're creating something a little darker, a little murkier, we'll help you along there as well. This is one of the assets that we gained from the Turbo Squid. So we work with companies to acquire 3D models that our students can use. We work with partnerships. We have a partnership with Boutique 23 for their characters. We develop our own characters. In this case, we worked with Turbo Squid to get the swimming pool, the Capitol building. And in this case, we worked with Kitbash 3D for this entire Victorian city. So you can download this. You have access to this for free as part of the course. And you can light this and again, add all this to your demo reel. So from the environment lighting course, we then build. So as you can see, we're just building and building and building from this base knowledge into some more specifics. So now we're getting into compositing. So some of the stuff that we talked about in that lighting walkthrough, we talk about in the compositing course. And the whole point of this compositing course for me, and this was a real personal project for me because compositing was my bugaboo for a long time, was demystifying the compositing process, specifically a node-based compositing software. Understanding what's happening in the step-by-step process, understanding the power that you have in the compositing process, not only to manipulate color and understand how color works, but understand layering, understand the way that the images are built together. And in this course too, I'm also really proud of the fact that we talk about the history of compositing in our medium, the history of compositing in animated films and in film in general. And what we will do is we will teach you how to add characters to a surrounding, how to add elements to an image, how to make glows, how to make things just kind of sparkle. It really is just all about giving that added polish to your image. Because anytime you see anything on the screen, you're not seeing straight renders. It's like seeing a film that doesn't get any sort of color grading or color correction in the end. It just doesn't happen. Everything goes through the compositing process in the end. So we want to give you the tools to take you through the entire pipeline from shading to lighting into compositing and out the door. So you can have clean, polished, final images. After compositing, we bring it all together in our biggest, most elaborate course, and this is our lighting and animated film course. Lighting and animated film takes all of these elements and it brings them all together. So we have created this entire 7-shot animated short, made it 100% completely available to you to use as our students. You can download the assets. You can, everything's shaded in Arnold. You can light it however you wish. You can do anything that you want with it. And again, have animated characters and assets to add to your demo reel right now, today. You can go on, if you sign up today, you can download and have them right now. Because not only are we giving you these things, I actually show you the entire process of lighting an animated film. So Jasmine and I take you through the process of master lighting shots, matching from shot to shot. Because again, when you're watching a film, it doesn't matter how good a single shot is, it matters how they flow together. I'm sure we've all seen a film where there's like one shot that looks a little bit off and it completely takes you out of the moment, completely takes you out of the scene. We don't want that for your films. If you want to make your own animated project, this is how you light that animated project. We'll show you the step-by-step process. We'll show you what has been proven in the industry and what you can do for yourself. We'll also work with you to understand, to learn how to develop your own animated short. So again, we give you this asset, but if you're lighting your own project and you want to do that, we'll teach you how to talk about light, how to think about light, and how to use light to the best of your advantage in your animated short. And we will work with you step by step through that entire process. So now we've got the lighting and animated film course. Now we've got something that I've never ever seen before in any other online school. This is something that really, I think, makes us special, makes us a little bit different. This is our getting and succeeding at our job in CG. Jasmine takes you through the entire process of building a demo reel, applying for jobs, interviewing for jobs, salary negotiation, what to do once you get in the industry to thrive, and all the steps in between. And it's not only us. We've interviewed Deb from Blue Sky, who's a recruiting and talent developer there. I also conducted an interview with Malia Mason, who is a tenured professor at Columbia, and her focus is in salary negotiation and negotiations in general. So we talk about how, when you get your job, how do you negotiate your first salary? And then from there, how do you negotiate a raise? And there's no like super tricks or anything. This is like straightforward, common sense, honest feedback on how you go about doing those things. So that's it. From start to finish. From beginning with simple, basic 3D knowledge to getting an introduction in the power of light, building it in the materials, building it even more in characters and environments, polishing your shot and compositing, bringing it all together in lighting an animated film, and then putting your reel together and applying for jobs and getting and succeeding at your job. And that's how you get it. Something extra is we throw in a couple extra classes too. So along the way, you're probably going to have some technical questions. And at TDU, we focus on the art. We don't care what render engine you use, because when you apply for jobs, they don't care either. They want to see that you're a good artist. But we know that you have to know this software too. So we don't want to bog these classes down with, okay, this is how you hit this button, this is how you hit that button. Included in our courses, we've got the TDU Arnold for Maya workshop and the Arnold and the Redshift workshop as well. So in these two courses, we will show you the basics of how to work with Arnold and how to work with Redshift. Redshift should be available soon. Arnold is available today. Now, the one thing that I really think helps us separate TDU, again, from the rest is our ability to critique and improve images. So we give critiques any way that we can. We will just sometimes write out a quick response if somebody has a quick question. If we'll do paint over critiques where we just manipulate your image and send you back. We also like to do video critiques whenever we can. And in video critiques, I will take a look at your work, or Jasmine will take a look at your work, and we record a video and get it back to you within 24 hours of what you're up to. We'll talk about ways to improve it. We'll talk about reference that we're looking at, because we love talking about this stuff, and we can talk about it all day. So through our critiquing, we're able to improve student work, because it's all great that you can go on YouTube and watch this stuff on your own, but unless you have a professional reviewing it and helping you improve, you're never going to take your image from this to this. You're going to look at this and be like, this is great, I'm done. You're never going to know that you can improve it. And I'm not saying anything against anybody. I couldn't have done this. You need to bounce your ideas off of people who know. And that's how you get better. It's repetitive, taking something, showing it, getting critique, and improving it. And so that's what we focus on. 24 hours. We try and get you feedback on your work within 24 hours. Saturday, Sunday, holidays, we do a weekend. Every once in a while, we do take times with our family. We'll let you know then. But we focus on trying to get feedback within 24 hours to get you the critique and the feedback and keep you improving, keep you motivated. Because we know if you have to sit there and wait for too long, that it won't happen. This is one of my favorite critiques ever. So this was the initial posting to our TDU forum. From there, we improved the lighting. We worked with the artist to get more of a mood, to get more understanding. And then we not only worked with the lighting, but we also wanted to improve the camera. So we shifted the camera on to create a more dynamic scene. And then we kept pushing and pushing. And there's probably 35 iterations of this before we got to the final image. And then we felt like we really had something there. So again, from start to finish. And that's what we want to do for you too. And this is what we bring to the table with TDU courses. So we talked about how we can take someone from the power of light, or basically from a basic understanding of 3D and taking them all the way through to having a demo reel that competes for the best jobs in the industry. And we know that this works, not because we theorize it, but because we've done it before and we've been there a lot. So I'm going to introduce you to a couple students who have used our lighting program to get jobs. This is Anwar Figueroa. He is phenomenal. He was a great artist that we met, and he started in our Power of Light course. He was, at the time, he was living in, he's from Mexico. He was working down there. He was working for a small shop and just really wanted to learn how to be a lighter. So we took him through. He started the way that all of our students do in the Power of Light course. Again, some simple shapes, just getting a good understanding. He built that into the character lighting course. He used our access to the Boutique 23 characters to get Piao here. And then he's the one that actually created this alley environment. And he's letting all of our students use that after him, which is a great, I'll get to our community, but I love our students, and we create a home that everyone tries to help each other here. So Anwar actually donated this asset to our students, but we worked with him to develop the lighting on this. From there, Anwar got a job. He was working on the film Storks, and we helped him get him through to that process. From there, he went out to work on Spider-Man or Superman vs. Batman. And most recently, he worked on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which, as you guys know, won the Academy Award. So this picture made us so happy to see Anwar go from somebody in Mexico who was just trying to get into the industry. He didn't have a college degree. He was nervous about getting a work visa. He asked us about that process. We worked with recruiters here in the States to answer his questions about what that would mean for somebody not having a college degree and the obstacles that would, and we helped him overcome those and get him into the career and ultimately get him to work on some of the best film of the last year. Let's meet another student. We've got Shane Sternstein. Shane started with us about a year ago. Shane started the same way. Simple objects, simple lighting, shaping, directing the viewer's eye. He built it from there. We continue to build. We get into our environment, learning to environment light, getting to direct the viewer's eye, creating mood, creating understanding of what we're going through, building that into character lighting. This is Shane working in Redshift to create this character lighting in the scene. And as you can see, Shane ultimately used the knowledge and the skills he gained at TDU to get a job as a lighter at DreamWorks Animation. And one of the things that we like to show is not only do we help students grow and gain and become members of this industry, but we create a really strong community at TDU. So Shane's actually the instructor for the Redshift course, and he'll show you how to light this asset. He's actually going to give you guys access to this entire scene. So not only will you learn Redshift, but you'll have access to use this and put this on your demo reel too. So that's how Shane, Anwar, and countless other students have used all of our courses to go from beginning their career into where we are now. So all of our courses, you can, if you choose to, you can purchase them individually. They're accessible to you. We price them accordingly. But what we're here to talk about is not only just picking and choosing the individual courses, but actually taking them all and bundling them all together, which is what we do in our ultimate lighting bundle. And this is, again, what you would need to take you from start to finish. Now, if we took all those classes and you bought them each individually, that would be $3,791. But since we want you to take all these classes, we want you to have this experience, we want you to have this knowledge, we've reduced that price by nearly half and made it $19.99. Now, I talked to you all about how today we're going to be offering something special, something we've never ever offered before. And it's actually going to change the way that we do TDU from now into the future. And it starts with this. I'll start with one bit of news, then we'll head over the second. So starting today, for the next 2 weeks until May 15th, the price will no longer be $19.99. We're going to reduce it additionally by $200 to $17.99. I realize that this is a little confusing, the plus minus $200. We're going to additionally subtract $200 and drop it down to $17.99. Now, that's the deal now. Now, May 1st until May 15th, it'll be that way. So what happens on May 15th? On May 15th, registration for the TDU Ultimate Lighting Bundle actually will shut down for a short period of time. This is because we understand that we want to work with you. We want to have a direct connection with you, our students, and we want to create an environment that gets you your feedback within 24 hours, that gets us working with you one-on-one. So we want to make sure that we're controlling the number of students in our courses so we don't get overwhelmed with too much, and we want to make sure that we have the time to focus on you. So we're going to, and we know this is a shift, and ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to have 4 registration windows over the course of the year, June 15th, September, January, and April, 4 times a year. And we'll, at each time, we'll open it up to a set number of students, and then we'll get another group in at that time. And again, this isn't because we don't want students, because we want to train everybody. But we have one way that we do it, and that's to work with you directly, not with, we don't want to create a situation where there's, thousands of students and we don't have the opportunity to work with you, because that's not what we do. Because we want to keep seeing these responses from our students. This is why we got into this. This is why we do what we do. We want to hear that, 5 months ago, you didn't know how to use Maya or Arnold or Nuke, and you were terrified of this new scene, but you got this animator's new shot and you were able to work with it, and you were able to light your first animated scene without any sort of intimidation and with our support. We want to hear that you learned more about lighting in a week at TDU than 3 years in college. We want this for each and every one of you, and we know that we need to work with you in order to make this happen. And ultimately, it's not just Shane, it's not just Anwar. We have students all the time posting, and this is what we want to see. This embodies TDU as a whole. Katerina and Carla posting to TDU saying they got a job and saying that they're excited to embark on the career that they have. And then all of our students jumping on board and congratulating them and supporting them on their journey and getting them to their goal, because that's what we want for all of you. Not only to get you your job, but to make you a part of a community of support and understanding and building towards your future. So that's what we do at TDU. Now I want to talk to you about one last thing. And that's and we've got the link here in the side. I was so focused on everything. We've got the link here in the side where you can sign up to start joining the lighting community. So now for this last bit, I do just want to tell you guys the last thing that makes TDU special. And so when I first started, I've been in the industry, like I said, for 12 years now. And when I first started, I had an art degree from college, and I didn't know what I was going to do. That's all I had. I was waiting tables at a Buca di Beppo restaurant in suburban Columbus, Ohio. I was completely lost. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know that lighting even existed. And then I watched Finding Nemo, and there was this segment in the behind the scenes of Finding Nemo where artists went scuba diving off the coast of Australia to get an understanding and get a look for the film. And it showed this process of building an image and taking something from start to finish and using this knowledge and this artistic skill to make these films look amazing. And I was blown away. And I knew in that moment, that was my aha moment. That was my, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to be. This is what I want for myself. And so it took me a while, and I went back to school and I worked hard at it. And it was, and then I got out of school and I started applying for jobs, and I just wasn't getting jobs, and it was frustrating. And it was about the low point of my life because I was questioning whether or not I wanted to keep doing this. And I needed some support. And luckily for me, I had an instructor who stayed with me through that whole process and helped me along the way to get me to that point, to getting into my job and giving me a career that ultimately has given me fulfillment. I can be creative, both artistically and technically. I can make a good living in a place that I love. I can work on some of the greatest films in the industry. We can, there's side perks. There's going to movie premieres and meeting the occasional celebrity and all that good stuff. But honestly, the thing about this industry that's so great is that you get fulfillment, and it gave me a sense of purpose. And so the thing that makes TDU different is that if you're struggling with that, if you're struggling with understanding where you're going in this industry, or if this is right for you, Jasmine and I will be here every single day to get you through that process. We will be here every day, no matter how long it takes, because we know that each one of your journeys is going to be different. For some people, it takes longer. For me, it took a very long time to realizing this is what I want to do to get there. And we want this webinar today to be your aha moment. We want this to be okay, this is what we want. And we want to be here for you. We want to be here to support you. I can never pay back the instructor who worked with me to get me on my way to give me my first job. But what I can do is that we can always pay it forward. So what we can promise you is that if you sign up for the TDU courses, you have a lifetime access. You're never going to get kicked out. You're never going to not have access to Jasmine and I and our feedback and our help. And we know that getting into this industry can be challenging and frustrating. And we know it because we've been there. And we've been through those dark roads that many of you are probably going through now. So come join us. Come join our team. We're all going through this together, and we can take you from start to finish. And we will be there with you every step of the way. So that's what we can offer. Every single day, we will offer that. Okay. So thank you guys for the last hour and 15 minutes of listening to me drone on. If any of you have any questions at all, I will now start paying attention to the questions over here to the side. So if there's anything that came up, if you have any questions for Jasmine or I about the bundle, about lighting, about the industry, about anything at all, I'll be here for 15 minutes or so, and I'm happy to work with you guys to answer anything that you may have. So let me see what we got here. Yes, the time did fly. And yes, it did. Thank you, Damien. That's very, very sweet. And I thank you guys for letting me show a video. I don't know if you can hear, but my voice is already starting to get raspy. I'm not so good at talking. I would be a terrible politician because I can't speak for more than like a half hour, 45 minutes straight at a time. I'm a much better listener than I am a talker. So, oh, it's my pleasure, Barbara. And like, if you guys have films too that you motivated you to get in this, I always like love hearing these stories. Like I said, it's always so interesting to hear how people got into these. Of course, it is depressing when it's like films that I worked on. They're like, oh, I saw this in junior high, and it makes me feel old. That's the only thing that bums me out. But let us know, what movies inspired you. Like I said, Jasmine and I love talking about this stuff, and we're happy to work with you every single step of the way. I'm gonna get a drink of water before I start answering questions. Yeah, no joke. The Matrix. That was there's some wow movies that happened. The Matrix was one. Jurassic Park was one. Terminator 2, Tron. All just like you watch them and you're just like blown away by them. And I think that was a really great moment. Okay, so 2 questions from Danny. We'll start with one. What things do you want to see in a junior lighting and compositing reel? So when I'm reviewing a reel for a job, the thing that I look for so the mistake that I made when I was coming up was I was like, okay, I need to learn Mental Ray and I need to learn Maxwell or RenderMan or whatever the thing was at the time. And nowadays it's V-Ray and Arnold and Redshift and all that stuff. And I was focused on learning that. what I didn't understand was that companies, and like as I said here now, I don't really care what renderer you use at all. What I look for is, again, those three things, those three whys. We look for, can you create visual shaping on a character? Can you create the ability to discuss that space? Most importantly, can you create mood? Can you tell a story visually with your light and color and your shadow? And additionally, can you create visual shaping? And can you direct the viewer's eye? Can you make a character pop off from the background? Can you make the eyes look really cool? And that's the kind of thing we're looking for, a connection, because when you've seen it, like when you see an image for the first time, you have this immediate reaction, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for that ooh moment, like, oh, that's so cool. Now, for a composite, or for a lighting and compositing reel, it all depends on what job you're applying to. If you're applying to a Blue Sky, Pixar, DreamWorks, looking at straight animation stuff, they're going to be looking at how well you can make a fully CG character. If you're applying to ILM or Weta, they're going to look to see how well you can light and integrate a CG object into a live action environment, or a live action character into a CG environment. So depending on what job you're looking at, they're going to be a little bit different things. But ultimately, it's, again, those same things. And you're going to get so tired of me saying them. Creating shaping, directing the viewer's eye, creating mood. Those are going to be the main things. I hope that answered your question. But again, it's more about being a good artist, because we know that we're probably going to have to teach you specific software techniques or our internal way of doing things, which is always weird no matter what company you work at. But what we can't teach is for you to have a good eye. So if you can demonstrate you got a good eye, you're going to move along quite well. Let's see. So you said you had 2 questions. I want to make sure I get them both. See, was that Danny? Okay. So I'll go to Williams, and we'll keep scrolling down here. Can you talk about the number of lights in a scene to optimize the scene? So the number of lights, you need, there's no like magic number. You need just as many lights in order to create your visual look, and not one more. You need every light working for you in every possible way. This is a very common question. So I've lit scenes with 5 lights that look great. And I've also lit scenes in films that with 400 lights, depending. Like it could be, if it's a night city scene, you're going to have a lot more lights. You're going to have car headlights and stop lights and lights inside windows and in apartments and flashing headlights and all this kind of crazy stuff. Now, that's going to be harder than a daytime scene in the desert where you just have one bright sunlight kind of doing most of the job and allowing the secondary bounces of the renderer to do their thing. So there's no magic answer to that. The key is that you want to add each light with purpose and with direction and with understanding, and you want to make sure that you're never creating too many, like it's very easy to create too many lights at first because you just want to illuminate things, but you want to craft things in a certain way. And we talk about it a lot in the course, in the courses, because it all depends on the individual scene, and it all depends on what you're going for. So the optimal way of doing it is the least number of lights that you can have to make the best looking image. Okay. When I took an environmental scene to light, the main challenge is how to overcome this. You start with reference every single time. No matter if you're working in any situation, and I'll say it, you'll see it in the lighting forum, in the lighting posts. The first thing that I'll often ask when somebody posts something is, okay, so what's your reference? What are you trying to achieve? So my process is I get a scene, I'll get the director or even myself, and I'll say, okay, for this, I want to get a feeling of it's nighttime, it's kind of scary, but there's a feeling of hope off in the distance, and I want to feel like this kind of optimism off to the side. So I'll go and I'll look at images, whether painting, I'll look at film, I'll look at photography, I'll look at anything to try and gather reference and like how are different artists using different things. I don't necessarily match those frame to frame, but I'll start to get ideas like, oh, I see. So if they kind of create like these cooler values in this area and make it warmer over there, it'll feel like I want to go there. It creates that feeling of optimism. But check out this artist over here. Check this out. This is really cool. So they got these super dark values, but then they've got this specular shaping kind of coming down here. Maybe I can have something like that. So you kind of piecemeal together, and that's how you get started. And then you rough up some lighting for us, you post it to TDU, we'll give you some feedback and you keep building from there. So then it's like, then you start the cycle of lighting, posting for feedback, hitting the notes, going again and again and again. Thanks for doing this. Oh, and yeah, my pleasure. Okay, let me go through this whole thing. Art schools, you guys are my fave. Hope to take the course one day. We would very excited to have you. Only question is about the relation to cinematography style exposure. Do you ever use guidelines or get notes similar to lighting ratios, 4:1 face to BG, like a key to fill ratio, or a face to BG ratio? It depends on the art director. It depends on, some people are more photorealistic about things. We're getting more and more, as the renderers get more photorealistic in their calculations, you'll get more notes along that. Some art directors will talk about stopping things up and down, or exposing up or exposing down. Other ones will just say make it 30% brighter, make it 40% brighter. It all depends on the individual art director that you're working with. But yeah, I mean, we approach this the same as a cinematographer for a film. Occasionally we will, we'll build off those ratios as well. So that's pretty common in our industry here. One technical question. Sorry. Does the poly count of the planes you create to reflect affect the render time? Because I always decrease it to have a 1 poly plane, but now I saw you didn't actually do that. That's probably me just being bad. It actually does not. If you have a flat surface, 1 plane is totally fine. But in that case, like some extra polys there, you caught me doing something wrong. That's true. You're better at it than I am. So it's catching 1 plane, because again, all you're doing is catching that 1 surface normal, so the light bouncing off that and hitting and directing the other way. You don't need like a vast panel of polygons like I had. I was a little sloppy in my workflow there, and I apologize for that. So you're right on that one. Okay, Nicholas asks, I've been working for a while in 3D industry, but not the animated film industry. Architecture and production visualization mostly. I would love to transition to more storytelling. Do you think it is more difficult coming from where I am or starting from scratch? I think it's definitely better to have some experience in the industry working a little bit. It can't hurt you to have some work experience. There's no one certain, like, listen, at our industry, people come from all walks of life. Like, we have artists who are architects. We have artists, like I was a photographer and a bartender, I guess, before I started getting into this. Jasmine was an economics major. People come from all different industries. And actually, people bounce around a lot between visual effects and animation. So it certainly doesn't help you to have that experience in the past. But what you want is to, again, have a demo reel that demonstrates that, because it's all good if you have like a lot of really cool product shots, but you want to be able to demonstrate to an animation company that you have the ability to light a character well. And that's the biggest stuff. All right. Is color theory also help to create realistic environments? Yeah. Color theory is like, we're just making artwork here. We're not doing it like having color theory is essential to this. Like having an understanding that, having an understanding of warm tones versus cool tones, having design principles, color theory principles, all that stuff will benefit you greatly in this. And we talk about all those in our courses. Like I said, I was an art major, so it's like my default to talk about that stuff. And we always want to bring that craft to the table. Thank you very much. I was wondering if you have like a test so I can know in which level I'm going to improve my skills. Everyone's different. If you want, you can, I should say this, if you have any questions, shoot us an email at headmasters@td-u.com. Send us over your demo reel. I can take a look and we can get back to you and let you know what courses will be right for you, or if the ultimate bundle is best for you. I would have to take a look at your work to get an understanding of where you are and the work that you've done, and help you build from there. Oh, Jasmine answered that. Yeah, look, we said the same thing. Hey, look at that. We are on the same page. Every lighting artist should do composition as well, or are they separate majors for each other? It's important for lighters to understand compositing. Be it at Pixar, Disney, Blue Sky, lighters do the compositing. So it's part of the same workflow. So lighting isn't isolated to just placing lights and rendering. It is compositing. Like I said, the reason why we talk about materials and shaders is that some smaller studios, the lighting artist creates her own shaders. Jasmine worked at many, many places. I'm sure she can tell you about where she was the shading artist as well. So having those knowledges of both compositing and shading is crucial to lighting, because it all works together. It all happens together. It's all part of It's all just different tools to creating the ultimate image at the end. Let's see, jump down here. It seems like Jasmine's answering questions along the way. Okay. Thank you so much for this workshop. My question is, how long would it take to normally to complete the full TDU course? So, the reason why we give you a lifetime access to this is because it takes everyone a different amount of time. We want to respect your time. We want to respect your life. If you have kids, if you have a job, if you're in school, or if you are dedicated full time to this, we want to respect the amount of time that it takes you to go through our program. Now, to get through the lectures and to understand everything, I would say if you sat down, 8 hours a day and watched them all, you can get through them in a couple weeks. But the craft of getting you from start to finish takes everyone a different amount of time, because you need to watch the videos, download the assets, practice lighting, post it, get feedback from Jasmine, myself, other industry professionals, other TDU students, and then do it again and do it again and do it again. And it's only through that repetitive process, only through that going over and over. Oh, Jasmine's catching me for missing a couple. Thank you, Jasmine. It's only through this repetitive process of going back and forth and doing it again and again do you get better. So we never say that we're never going to say it takes you 3 months, 6 months. So for Shane, he was with us he signed up last January, and he got the apprenticeship. He got the lighting. I think it's the lighting apprenticeship at DreamWorks. I think it was like in August. So it took him about 9 months to go from building it up. I would say about a year. If I was like pressed to say something, but everybody's different. And if some people it could take 6 months if you burn through all of it and you're working really hard. For other people, it takes a little bit longer. Okay. Do you have any planning of any courses for fire, explosion, VFX lighting? Yeah, we have Vadim Turchin. He's a CG supervisor at MPC. He's going to be creating photoreal lighting courses for us, an entire bundle of that in the near future. He's got some, he needs to create some, we need to get him on some time. But yeah, we are going to be building and we're going to keep growing from here. So next up is we're going to do some photoreal stuff, and then we'll keep going from there. Okay, the two questions that I missed. The video game lighting and the demo reel for someone new to the industry. Oh, okay. So I'll start with sorry, let me get up and find them. Okay, what is the main difference between lighting for feature animation and VFX lighting? Oh, okay, that was the other one. Okay, so I'll talk about video game lighting. Video game lighting is going to become more relevant in films as real-time rendering becomes more and more available. Like Redshift is all real-time, and Arnold just released their real-time renderer. And we're going to look into doing some real-time rendering and video game stuff in the future. It's not in our immediate plans, but it's definitely something that we have on our radar and something that we're very aware of. In terms of the demo reel for someone new to the industry. So the demo reel is 2 to 3 minutes of your best work being presented to companies. And what you want to do is it's your time to showcase your skills, to tell a company, hey, I'm good enough for you to give me money to do this thing. And it's important to focus on Jasmine's playing my outro music now. So so we're gonna wrap it up here. But yeah, so the demo reel is a 2 to 3 minute showcasing of your best work so you can demonstrate your ability for the job. It's the most important thing about the job application process. It is 100% the reason why a company will hire you. Your resume is cool, your cover reel is cool, but your demo reel is the ultimate thing that you want, which is why we focus so much on it at TDU, because it's the thing that you get a stack of resumes, you get a stack of, well, it used to be a stack of DVDs. Now you just get links and you click through them and you watch the demo reel. And then if you like the demo reel, then you'll go back and you look at their resume. So the demo reel is ultimately the most important thing. Okay, last question. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Danny. Okay, last two questions. Oh, wait. So Danny asks, what's the main difference between lighting for feature animation and VFX for film? Lighting for animation is a completely CG environment. It's lighting for an animated movie. It's versus VFX, which is like animated films are like Pixar or Disney movies. VFX films are like the Avengers, or when you have lots of integration of you're mashing up CG and live action stuff together. It's slightly different skills, slightly different way of working, where it's more matching to photorealistic or matching to the film plate versus creating the entire thing from scratch and creating the entire CG. So CG lighting is 3D lighting, animated lighting is all CG. VFX lighting is CG plus live action elements. And the very last question from Danny. Wait, no, I did Danny's. I have a question. Are those points you look at when in lighting artists when you're recruiting? Yes. So we don't focus on anything other than what's the most important thing in the industry here for you. We don't. We are solely focused on getting you the best demo reel for the best job. And again, the things that we look at are: can you create visual shaping? Can you direct the viewer's eye? Can you create mood? These are the most important things about the demo reel, because we know we're going to have to teach you certain elements once you get into the job of our programs, of our software. But we look for good artists. We can't, in the industry, you have time to train someone how to use Katana or something. But we don't have time to teach you how to be a good artist. You need to demonstrate that in your reel. And so we want to give you the skills because we have the time to dedicate to you to make you a better artist. And that's what we're going to do. Okay. Thank you guys so much. Again, if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to Jasmine and I at headmasters@td-u.com. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. But once again, thank you for taking the time to listen to us. Thank you so much. And again, don't wait only until May 15th that this thing is available. Then we're shutting down registration for a little while. So get on it, get going, ask questions if you got them. And there will be a replay. You're right, Jasmine. Talk to you all soon. Thank you guys very much. Oh, there's Jasmine. Hey, Jasmine's here. All right. Thank you, Jasmine, for answering everyone's questions. You've been great. Okay. Thank you, guys. Bye. Happy lighting.